Hey everybody, welcome back. I can't believe it's been over 2 weeks. Actually, I think I haven't sent you a video in over 3 weeks. That's all right. You needed the break. But I hope everybody had a great spring break. I know I did. Try to get outside as much as possible as the weather really started to turn. Getting those days in the 60s, even into the 70s, some sunshine. Just felt really good to get out. I hope you all did the same thing. But also, I do have to no excuses. But one of the reasons why we had a little extra time with the second week of spring break is I'm in my first ever semester as the department chair. And not only summer, but fall schedules have to be in. And I've been working my ass off on them. I've never done them before. And it's something I don't even want to go into, especially here. So anyway, your speeches were really good. I loved a lot of the topics. One of the things I love about this assignment, which I wish we were doing it in person, I really do. But one of the things I love about this assignment is the fact that there's a lot of things that students don't know about that happen in other countries. These little festivals and celebrations and holiday, things that go on, events that you've never heard of. And there were quite a few. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time. This assignment I've been doing since 1997. And here at Bergen, I've been doing this since 1999. So you'd think I've heard everything, but no, I haven't. And there were a couple of really good ones, events that I'd never heard of, celebrations I'd never heard of, going on in different countries. And you really do learn from it. I just wish that if we were in person, it would be much easier for you to be able to see the other speeches. But that's all right, because there were some really good ones. Now, the one thing I do want to warn before we go ahead and move on to our next chapter is as we get ready for the persuasive speech, with some of you, it was easy to see, and again, I've been doing this a long time, it's easy to see that the first time you videoed yourself was the first time you were delivering that speech. I mean, some of you were practically reading the entire speech like you'd never seen it before. Okay? You want to make sure you practice. Okay? Some of you, even back in the third grade, got stuck doing a play in school. Okay? Now, they didn't just hand you a script, have you go up on the stage, and the first time you show the script, you do the play. No, you have what they call rehearsals. All right? And you rehearse and you rehearse. And, of course, with a play, they want you to memorize the line, which I don't want you to memorize. But by the time those people get up on the stage, they know their lines. They know what they're going to say. Here, again, I don't want memorization. But if you practice at least 3 or 4 times, you're going to have a good idea that 5th time when you hit record, you're going to have a good idea of what you're going to be saying. Okay? So you don't want to get up there almost sounding like you're completely lost or you really don't know what you're talking about. Okay? Because here's the key, people. If you don't know what you're talking about, we'll know you don't know what you're talking about. See, people can see right through you. There are too many people who think they can fool an audience, and they can't. Okay? And the last thing you want to do is, let's say you have a 5 or 10 minute speech you have to deliver, and you really don't know what you're talking about. Within 2 minutes, you'll lose your audience completely, and nobody's listening to your message. And I'm talking, this could be next semester, this could be 10 years from now. All right? So make sure you practice before you hit that record. All right, we're moving on to the next chapter, and it's really one that, God, I can't stand that we're doing virtual, because this definitely needs the face-to-face, and that, of course, is group communication. Now, groups are an assemblage of people who get together to solve problems, come up with new ideas, all kinds of different things. And you do it in an assemblage where you come together to complete a task, solve a problem, and hopefully come to some kind of conclusion. In most cases, you want to come to that unanimously. And you want to keep it small. Typically, a group is between 5 to 7 people. Now, the reason why you want to keep it 5 to 7, you don't want to go too far over 7, because then you get a couple of people who don't even get their voices heard. Then it's really not a group. And then you want to go at least up to 4 or 5, because that at least lets you cover a wide spectrum of ideas. Okay? If you only have 2 or 3 people, you might not be hitting, especially 2 or 3 people who maybe are alike. All right. One of the things I like to do when I do the groups is I put the groups together. Like, say, for example, if you were in a group in high school and there were 4 or 5 of you, and these were all the best friends that you had in high school. How many different perspectives are coming out of that group? Yeah, pretty much only one. I've had the same 3 best friends since I'm 15 years old. We still chat and talk together. We don't see each other as often as we'd like, but whether it's text messages or talking on the phone. You put the 4 of us together and ask for us to come up with an idea for something, you're only going to get one perspective. That's why we've been best friends since I was 15 years old. Okay? So what I do when I pick the groups, I got a little sweat coming up. My wife's office is always so hot. Yeah, my wife has the office. I don't have the office. My wife has the office. That's because she's a principal. Anyway, yeah, you remember those people who, when you were in 3rd grade, if you did something wrong, your teacher sent you down to the principal's office, you had to see my wife. Anyway, oh God, I lost my train of thought, which is so stupid because I never wanted to lose my train of thought. As a matter of fact, I'm the one who always says, I can't stand professors who go off track and go off on a rambling about something else. And what do? Anyway, so what I do when I pick the groups is I pick them myself. And typically what I would do is I would try to pick a group for you to be with people who I don't normally see you associating with. Like, typically by this time of the semester, we're now 8-9 weeks into the semester, when you come into class, if it was a 2-day-a-week class, you typically sit next to the same person now, or there's a couple of people who you'll chat with before class, or you walk to class with, that kind of thing. I would make sure to not put you with those people in a group, because typically we gravitate towards people who we have something in common with. This way, as I pick the groups, and I pick groups where it's people I don't, especially like if you're in the workplace. If there's one thing about the workplace, okay, as a lot of you know, if with the exception of maybe you work for your mom or dad, you don't get to pick who you work with. All right, which means you got to work with people who might have opposite opinions of you or might not share the same ideas that you have, and you now have to work with them to come up with one solid idea or one solid solution to a problem. So that's what I like to do with groups. Now, one of the biggest reasons why I like to limit it between 5 and 7 is because if you go past 7, like I said, you get some people who don't get involved. But you remember when you're in high school, if there was like a group of 6 that your teacher put you in, and maybe you and one other person did all the work and the other people didn't do anything, that's not a group. That's a duo. Now, the other 4 people are going to try and share in the glory, but they didn't do anything. Now, there are some teachers who will grade like that. They'll say, well, I'll only give 1 grade to the 2 people who worked and a separate grade to the other 4. But then some just give the group overall the same grade, which is really not fair. All right. See, the key to group, in order to have a group, I mean, if I assign 5 people to a group, I'm expecting all 5 to be involved in that discussion. See, the key to group is you must have equal and active participation. Otherwise, it's not a group. Each and every person in the group must be equally and actively participating. Sometimes you may have someone who's just sitting there not saying a gosh darn word. Well, you know what? Bring them into the conversation. And we're going to talk more about that on Thursday, about you as the group participant. Now, let's talk a little bit about the types of groups there are. Now, one of them I've already mentioned is a work group. Okay? Work groups are so rampant. I mean, there's a reason why. If you go down the street from Bergen, like if you go over Route 4 on Paramus Road South, and you have those big white buildings on the right before you get to the Parkway, actually, they shot the first episode of The Sopranos there. There's like 2, if not 3, conference rooms on each floor. Even at Bergen, in our administration wing, there's at least 2 conference rooms on each floor. Okay? I've been to the smallest little bank branches who will have a conference room in the back. Now, normally it's just the Dunkin' Donuts and the coffee that are on the table, but once they have to get in, once they close the doors and it's time for a meeting of all the tellers and stuff, they get the white powdery, Dunkin' Donuts off the table, clean it up, and then they go ahead and sit and have that face-to-face meeting. So work teams are very, and this, for example, if we were in a face-to-face classroom, you would be getting together and working as a team. As a matter of fact, what I like to do is once I assign the groups in the class, each class usually gets 4 groups, about 5 or 6 people each. What I would do is I'd let you pick the place where you would meet. Different places on campus. There's some great meeting rooms in our library. You could meet down in the cafeteria, as long as you're away from all the gamers, because the gamers always make noise all day. But you'd be the cafeteria, the student lounge. I mean, different places where you could sit and meet as a group, and hopefully, in some cases, a very quiet area. So you'll be able to actively participate without getting interrupted. So yeah, even in school, that would be considered a work team. But a great example, of course, was when I first started teaching at Bergen. In the spring of 2000, my second semester, I taught the first ever Com-100 down at the Ciarco Center in Hackensack. And a young lady took my class there. It was an 8 o'clock in the morning class. And she took it because right after class, she would immediately go down to the Sears that used to be on Main Street in Hackensack. And she was in charge of the women's department. Got to fix my lighting here. Hold on. There we go. Had to fix that lighting. And she would run the women's department. So, and she would tell us that, like, when a big sale was coming up, like Valentine's Day, President's Day, Memorial Day, or, of course, the big one, Black Friday, she and the other department heads would get together and just throw ideas back and forth at one another about how they best display their sale items, how they best schedule their people. So she was a great example about work teams. But then there's other different types of groups, okay? There are things called study groups, okay? One of the things that students just don't like to do, they don't like to think about study. Like, when I study for a test, I study my way, and my way is the only way. And then I ask them, well, do you ace every exam? Well, no, but I don't want to hear another word. All right? Study groups can only be beneficial as long as you do them right. But a study group could be beneficial. I'll give you a big reason why study groups can be so beneficial, especially if we're in a face-to-face classroom. Okay? Is, sometimes students, you like to doze off. You like to just wander off. Like, one of the things I always like to do when I walk into a classroom, right before I start teaching it, if I have windows, I pull the shades closed. Okay? Because we tend to drift off. And what ends up happening is you're studying for a midterm exam, and you're looking at chapter 3, and you're thinking, okay, she talked about this, this, and this. I don't remember her talking about that, so I won't study that. And then you get the exam, and all the questions from chapter 3 are about that. And you get them all wrong. Well, why didn't you think that she talked about that? Because she did talk about that, but that was a day where you were thinking about all the great snowboarding you were doing up at Mountain Creek, or, going down to the shore this summer with your friends, and you were just dozing off. You were thinking about what you did this past weekend. We do that during lectures. Okay, I still do it. I do it a lot. As a matter of fact, we've got the faculty conference coming up next Tuesday, April 6th, or April 5th, whenever it is. I'm going to doze off completely during some of those conference sessions. Absolutely. I'll be thinking about everything else but what they're talking about. So with a study group, you'll at least have 2 or 3 other people, because we don't tend to drift off at the same time. We drift off at different times. So if you're studying chapter 3, you can say, well, I remember she went over this, this, and this, and the other person can say, well, don't forget she went over that. And you'll be like, when did she do? Yeah, remember 2 weeks ago? And you'll be like, oh, that's when I was thinking about the snowboarding. Yes, you're right, she did talk about that. And then you mark it down, and you ace your exam. All right? I would always strongly recommend study groups. Now, there's a couple other type of groups. There's one in particular I want to get to. It's one that people seem to tend to forget. Effective group communication is vital. And that is the family. People don't realize that you need effective communication in the family. All right? I'll give you a great example. And I've had this example many times over the course of the last 2 decades. If you're watching this, that means you're a college-age student. Okay? If you're a college-age student, that means your grandparents are probably now retired. And let's say, your grandfather retires, then your grandmother retires, and then unfortunately, your grandfather passes away. All right? So now your grandfather's passed away, your grandmother's still alive, of course, but maybe she just can't do things by herself. She can't do the things around the house by herself that your grandfather used to handle. So now comes the question, well, what do we do with Mama? So then maybe one Saturday night, let's say at your house, your mom and dad, your one aunt and uncle, and your other aunt and uncle, you come over, you celebrate all the birthdays, the anniversaries, whatever. You have dinner, and then after dinner's over, like with us Italians, you put out the cannolis and the cookies and the coffee. And then the question comes up, what do we do with mama? Okay? And these need some very serious discussions. See, sometimes when you think of the family, it's just planning out a party. Okay? But no, but these kind of things are some of the serious discussions that you do have. Now, I'm not saying the planning of the party. As a matter of fact, great example. When my cousin lived in Waldwick, my cousin Roseanne, her kids threw her a surprise 25th anniversary party for her wedding anniversary. Now, when she opens up the door and everybody in the room says surprise, and about 100 people are in this banquet room say surprise, of course she gets shocked. She's got mascara running down her eyes from crying. Oh, my children are the best. But to get that moment took I think it started 10 months before. 10 months prior is when her 3 kids and her 2 sister-in-laws started getting together. When do we have the party? Where do we have the party? How many people do we invite? What kind of menu do we have? Okay? How do we get them there without them knowing it's their party? I mean, these are the kind of things that take a long time. And that's one of the keys to effective group communication, is giving yourself, especially when it comes to the family, is making sure you give yourself the proper amount of time to have the discussions necessary to complete that task or to find a solution to a problem or to come up with an idea. Some people think you can get together with a group and within 10 minutes you're done. No, it doesn't happen that way. Okay, it just doesn't happen that way. Another example, a student a couple years ago, a very similar situation to the one I'm talking about, where the grandfather died. The grandmother was by herself, but she was now getting up in years, and they were trying to decide what to do. And of course, what they decided they were going to do, and this is her parents and her aunts and uncles. What they decided to do is they were going to go ahead and sell the house, and then the mother was going to go ahead and live with one of the kids. Well, what she said was interesting. She said that was a year ago. In the year since, my parents and my aunts and uncles have had some meetings. They can't always get together all the time. Sometimes it's virtual. But unfortunately, after a year, they hadn't come to a decision about what to do with the mother. The mother's been bouncing around from house to house, living out of a suitcase. And the worst part is not only has the house that she lived in been empty for a year, they haven't even contacted a realtor yet. So these are the kind of things that do take time, especially with the family. Well, that sets up your assignment. So you've got the assignment sheet attached to this email. Go ahead and send it in by Wednesday at 8 p.m. And I will have another video for you on Thursday morning. Welcome back from spring break. The semester's now just going to slowly roll downhill, and things are going to go quick. So we'll see you on Thursday morning. Get those in by Wednesday, 8 p.m.